Ever notice how the louder you speak your truth, the more people twist your words? What if staying silent wasn't weakness, but the most powerful form of protection? Because sometimes, when you stop fighting, karma starts writing. Have you ever found yourself desperately trying to defend your truth, only to feel like your words are being flipped against you? Like no matter how honest or justified you are, the more you explain, the more desperate you seem, while the real offenders quietly walk away, untouched. It's one of the most frustrating things about life and people. Truth doesn't always win in the short term. But what if I told you that the moment you stop explaining, stop chasing, and stop reacting, that's when karma takes the stage? Think of it like this: a snake that bites its own tail only wounds itself deeper the more it struggles. But once it stops fighting, nature takes over, and healing begins. Or imagine shouting in a vast mountain range. The echo always returns. That's how karma works. What they put out, every lie, every manipulation, every drop of deceit, eventually circles back. While they're busy provoking, twisting, and controlling, you have a choice. You can either step into the trap, or step back, and let karma write the final chapter for them. Because when you choose silence, that's when the weight of their own actions finally comes crashing back. That's when the storm they created turns inward, and they're forced to face the damage alone. So, when should you stay silent? When is it wiser to let karma speak instead of you? Stay with me, because the final moment on this list might just change the way you handle conflict for good. Let's begin with the first one: when someone lies about you. Few things are more maddening than being lied about. When someone spreads false stories, your instinct might scream at you to clear your name, to speak out, to prove them wrong. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Trying to defend yourself often pours fuel on the fire. The more energy you spend reacting, the more people start paying attention, not to the truth, but to the drama. Even those who once had no doubts might begin to question what's really going on. Because for some people, it was never about facts. It was always about control. The person lying about you, they don't care about what's real. They're not looking for the truth, they're looking for a reaction. They want you shaken, emotional, on edge. They want your every response to seem like a guilty defense, even when you're innocent. And once you engage, you've already lost. You're now playing by their rules. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes your shield. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Hold yourself to that standard. Let others lie, deceive, and manipulate. Their actions do not define you, your response does. Instead of using breath to argue with falsehoods, let time and truth do their quiet work. Because here's something people forget: lies have a shelf life. Truth doesn't. It lasts forever. In the next part, I'll share a real story that shows exactly how choosing silence in the face of lies can preserve your dignity, and let karma do the heavy lifting for you. Let's continue. As we learned with James, sometimes saying nothing allows the truth to speak louder than any defense. Silence, when chosen wisely, isn't passivity, it's power in disguise. Let me take you deeper into that story. There was a man I once knew, let's call him James. One day, out of nowhere, he was accused of something at work he had absolutely no part in. A lie, whispered just loud enough to echo through the halls. The rumors began to swirl. People looked at him differently. Some co-workers started pulling away, quietly creating distance. James's first reaction was what most of us would feel: the urge to defend himself. To go from desk to desk, to explain, to convince, to prove that the gossip wasn't true. But he didn't. Instead, he chose a different path. He stayed quiet. He kept showing up, doing his job with integrity, staying professional, never slipping into pettiness or drama. He let his work, and his character, do the talking. And then, weeks later, the truth surfaced. The very person who had started the rumor was found to have a long history of manipulation and dishonesty. It all came to light. James didn't have to shout, didn't have to chase anyone down. Because by never engaging in the noise, his reputation remained untouched. Unbothered. Intact. So what can we learn from this? First, trust the long game. Lies may travel fast, but truth always endures. It doesn't need a spotlight, it just needs time. Second, stay rooted in your integrity. If you know who you are, you don't have to fear who they say you are. Those who matter will see through the lies in time. And finally, let karma do what it does best. People who build their lives on deception eventually crumble under the weight of their own patterns. You don't need to chase. You don't need to react. The truth will rise. It always does. At the end of the day, silence isn't a sign of weakness, it's a form of control. When someone lies about you, resist the urge to stoop to their level. Stay grounded. Stay calm. And most of all, stay patient. Because when the truth comes out, and it will, you'll still be standing tall, with your dignity fully intact. Now let's talk about another kind of pain, one that cuts even deeper than lies: betrayal. Betrayal. The word alone carries weight. Whether it's a trusted friend who turns their back, a partner who breaks their promise, or someone you believed in who disappoints you, the sting runs deep. It's a different kind of wound, one that doesn't always bleed, but always bruises. And what's our instinct when we're betrayed? We want answers. We want justice. We want to hold them accountable for the hurt they caused. But here's the hard truth: words rarely change the heart of a betrayer. If someone was able to betray you once, they've likely rationalized it in their own mind. They've convinced themselves that what they did was necessary, or worse, that it was your fault. Try to explain. They'll twist your words. Try to make them feel remorse. They'll paint you as the villain. That's why silence isn't just protection, it's a statement. This is where the wisdom of the Stoics truly comes into play. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." In other words, betrayal may be painful, but it's also a powerful test. A moment of refinement. One that forces you to examine your boundaries, to evaluate who belongs in your life, and who never truly did. The pain you're feeling? It's not just suffering. It's a revelation. A lesson in self-respect. In letting go. In choosing your peace over their excuses. Up next, I'll share a real-life story that shows how choosing silence in the face of betrayal can become your greatest act of strength. Let's keep going. Betrayal isn't just a wound, it's a revelation. It strips away illusions and shows you exactly who someone is, and who they were never meant to be in your life. Let me share a true story. There was a woman I know, let's call her Sarah. She had a best friend for over a decade. 10 years of shared secrets, late-night talks, life wins, and life losses. A bond that felt unbreakable. But one day, Sarah discovered the truth. That same friend had been talking behind her back, sharing private conversations, revealing things meant to stay between them, and even sabotaging Sarah's professional opportunities. The betrayal hit her like a punch to the gut. Her first reaction? Fury. She wanted to confront her, to force her to understand the damage she had caused. But instead, Sarah did something far more powerful. She chose silence. No confrontation. No dramatic exit. No revenge. Just distance. She quietly stepped away, no explanations, no second chances. And what happened next was unexpected. The friend, who was likely bracing for an explosion, got something far worse: indifference. No anger. Just emptiness. And that silence? It screamed louder than any accusation ever could. It forced her to sit with the weight of what she had done, without distraction. So, how do you handle betrayal? First, accept the truth: some people will never be who you thought they were. And the pain? It often comes from your expectations, not their actions. Let that go. Second, don't waste your energy trying to explain what they already know. They may never admit it, but they're fully aware of what they did. And finally, walk away with dignity. Not every relationship deserves a closing argument. True power lies in detachment. Betrayers feed on your reactions, on guilt, on the hope of one more chance. Don't give them that. Let your silence be the reminder. You were never the one who lost. You were the one they should have never betrayed. And now, let's talk about something universal. Something we've all experienced. Being insulted. It doesn't matter who you are, at some point, someone will try to tear you down with words. It might be a snide comment, a passive-aggressive jab, or a flat-out attack. But behind every insult, there's always the same motive: to provoke. Because the moment you react, whether you argue, defend yourself, or show anger, you've given them exactly what they wanted: control over your emotions. Here's the simple truth: responding to insults only gives them power. The people who insult you, they're looking for a crack in your armor. They want to see you flinch. They want proof that their words mattered. But when you remain calm, unshaken, and indifferent, you win. Because nothing frustrates an insulter more than being ignored. This is where Stoic wisdom shines again. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Think about that for a moment. When you respond with pettiness to pettiness, you lose more than your temper, you lose your self-control. You lower yourself to their level. But if they're being cruel, disrespectful, or immature, why give them the satisfaction of seeing you break? Take the higher road. Choose silence. Choose dignity. Choose self-command. Coming up next, I'll share a powerful story that shows exactly what happens when you rise above the insult and leave your enemy speechless. Let's move forward. We just talked about how silence can shield you from the sting of betrayal, and now, let's look at how it can disarm something just as common: insults. Let me share a story with you. There's a man I know, we'll call him David. David was attending a professional event, celebrating his recent promotion. Things were going well, until a coworker, clearly envious, decided to take a public jab at him. With a sarcastic smirk, the coworker said, "Wow, I guess they're handing out promotions to just anyone these days." The room went quiet. All eyes turned to David, waiting for a reaction. An argument. A comeback. Some sort of emotional response. But David didn't flinch. He simply smiled, made direct eye contact, and said nothing. No anger. No defense. Just calm, intentional silence. And that silence, it shifted the energy in the room. The coworker, expecting drama, now stood exposed, awkward and visibly unsettled. Because David didn't lose control, he kept it. So, how do you handle insults like that? First, recognize the truth about insults: they often reveal more about the person delivering them than the one receiving them. People who insult others are usually projecting their own insecurity. It's never really about you, it's about their own lack. Second, understand this: your silence is your power. When you refuse to give them the reaction they crave, you deny them control. You show them that their words have no weight in your world. And finally, carry yourself with confidence. Because when you respond with calm, collected indifference, they lose. The insulter is left powerless, stranded in a game you refuse to play. At the end of the day, you can't control what others say. But you can absolutely control what you give your energy to. And often, the most powerful response is no response at all. Because silence, that's the ultimate proof that their words don't define you. You define you. Now let's move into a more slippery, manipulative behavior: one that many people fall victim to. The victim act. Let's talk about one of the most exhausting tactics people use, playing the victim. You know the type. They distort the truth, twist the story, leave out the parts where they were in the wrong, and somehow make it all seem like you are the villain. They don't care about resolution. They care about attention. They're not interested in honesty. They're looking for sympathy. And the more you try to explain yourself, the worse it gets. You start looking defensive, emotional, even guilty. Because here's the truth. Some people don't want to make peace. They want to control the narrative. Their goal isn't to fix anything. It's to make sure they come out looking like the wounded hero, while you're painted as the aggressor. So what do? This is where Stoic wisdom comes in once again. As Epictetus said, to complain is always non-productive and never appropriate. When someone plays the victim, engaging with them only adds fuel to the fire. You're giving them what they want, a platform. An audience. A reason to keep spinning their version of the story. Up next, I'll share a real-world example of how silence can dismantle the victim narrative, and restore your peace in the process. Let's keep going. When someone plays the victim, they're not looking for solutions, they're looking for an audience. Let me repeat that, they don't want peace. They want power, through pity. And the best part? Karma doesn't need your help to expose them. Because the truth, it always surfaces. Not always today. Maybe not even tomorrow. But with time, patterns become impossible to hide. People begin to notice how they always seem to be the victim, no matter the story, no matter the setting. And eventually, the act collapses. Let me tell you about Rachel. She worked with a woman who had mastered the role of the victim. Anytime she was held accountable or called out, she'd twist the situation into something else entirely. She'd say things like, "I can't believe you'd accuse me of that. I'd never hurt anyone." She knew exactly when to cry, who to cry in front of, and how to turn the spotlight of sympathy toward herself. And Rachel? She fell right into the trap at first. She tried to defend herself. She presented facts. She shared proof. She even tried to have calm, rational conversations. But the more she tried to explain, the worse it got. Every word Rachel spoke was used against her. Every explanation became fuel for the victim narrative. So Rachel made a different choice. She stopped defending. She stopped reacting. She went completely silent. And with that silence, something powerful happened. Over time, others began to see what Rachel had already seen. The patterns. The tears that came too easily. The stories that never quite added up. The same manipulative tactics used again and again. Eventually, people stopped believing her. The emotional mask wore thin. The performance lost its power. And the credibility? Gone. So what can we learn from Rachel? First, don't argue with a victim player. The more you try to justify yourself, the more they spin it to fit their script. Second, stay calm. Stay emotionally detached. Let their behavior speak for itself. And third, trust karma. People who manipulate truth and twist reality always reveal themselves in time. At the end of the day, your silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. Let them talk. Let them tell their version. Let them play their game. Because the truth, it doesn't need your defense. Time will take care of that. Now let's turn to one of the most quietly painful lessons in life. Being ignored. Being undervalued. Whether it's in a relationship, a friendship, or a job, you eventually come to a realization that stings: someone no longer sees your worth. You give. You show up. You support. You offer your presence. But in return, you get indifference. A lack of appreciation. You get treated like an afterthought instead of a priority. And the natural reaction? You want to fight for your place. You want to prove your value. You want to make them see what they're taking for granted. But here's the truth that hurts. Begging for recognition only lowers your value. The more you chase someone's validation, the less they respect you. Because people don't treasure what's always available. They don't value what they believe they'll never lose. And this is exactly why silence becomes your greatest weapon. In the next part, we'll explore what happens when you stop trying to be seen, and start letting your absence speak instead. Let's keep going. When you stop proving yourself, something powerful happens. They start to feel the absence of everything they once took for granted. That quiet, intentional silence. It becomes a mirror. And in that reflection, they finally see what they lost. This is where Stoic wisdom speaks again. Seneca once said, "Time discovers truth." And that's exactly what happens when you walk away with dignity. The truth doesn't need a defense team. It reveals itself, not through noise, not through arguments, but through absence. Because the people who genuinely valued you, they'll notice the silence. The ones who didn't, they were never truly meant to stay. Let me tell you about Jake. He was the kind of man who made the effort. Always the first to reach out. The one who remembered birthdays, checked in after tough weeks, showed up for people when no one else did. Whether it was friends or coworkers, he made people feel seen, appreciated, and supported. But one day, Jake noticed something. If he didn't send the first message, no one messaged. If he didn't initiate a conversation or invite, silence. Days turned into weeks, and the pattern became undeniable. And that's when it hit him. He wasn't being valued, he was being used for convenience. So Jake made a quiet decision. He stopped chasing. No emotional goodbye. No confrontation. No guilt trip. Just silence. And you know what happened? The people who truly cared, they reached out. They noticed the gap. They missed him. But the ones who only saw him as an option, they vanished. And that was his answer. So how do you handle being undervalued? First, stop trying to explain your worth. You don't become less valuable just because someone refuses to recognize it. Second, step back and observe. The right people won't need reminders to appreciate you. And third, let time do what words never could. When you walk away with quiet dignity, you give people the space to realize what they've lost. Because here's the hard truth. If someone can't see your worth while you're present, let them feel it in your absence. Sometimes, the only way people learn to value you is when they no longer have access to you. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you. I hope this has resonated with you. If it has, drop a comment that says, "Thank God," and give the video a like. It truly helps this community grow. Your support means everything, and it's what keeps this channel going strong. Let's keep learning, growing, and rising, together. Now, let's shift gears to something more confrontational. What do you do when someone deliberately tries to provoke you? Because not all attacks come in the form of betrayal or insult. Sometimes, it's pure manipulation, a strategic attempt to pull you into emotional chaos. There will always be people who thrive on conflict. They poke, they prod, they say just enough to get under your skin. And the moment you react, whether through anger, frustration, or defense, you've handed over your power. That's exactly what they want, your reaction. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People who seek conflict rarely want resolution. What they crave is emotional dominance. They want to throw you off balance. They want to feel control, by watching you lose yours. In the next section, I'll share a powerful example of how mastering silence in the face of provocation can leave your enemies disarmed, and you fully in control. Let's continue. But when you refuse to engage, when you remain calm, composed, and emotionally untouchable, That becomes the ultimate power move. This is where Stoic philosophy gives us a timeless anchor. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You can't always control how others behave. You can't stop them from trying to provoke, manipulate, or frustrate you. But what you can control, completely, is your inner state. And when you master that, you become untouchable." Let me give you an example. There's a guy I know, we'll call him Adam. Adam had a coworker who absolutely thrived on drama. Every team meeting, every casual conversation, this guy would throw out subtle jabs. Snide comments. Sarcasm masked as jokes. Anything to get under Adam's skin. At first, Adam did what most people would do. He defended himself. He argued. He explained. But no matter what he said, it never made a difference. In fact, it only made things worse. The more he reacted, the more power he handed over. So one day, Adam made a quiet decision. He tried something different. The next time that coworker threw out another jab, Adam didn't bite. He simply smiled, gave a calm nod, and moved on like it never happened. And guess what? The coworker hated it. He tried again. Then again. But without the reaction he craved, the fuel ran out. Eventually, the drama stopped, not because the coworker changed, but because Adam stopped giving him power. So how do you deal with people who constantly try to provoke you? First, recognize the pattern. If someone keeps pushing your buttons, it's not accidental. They're playing a game, and you're the prize. Second, stay calm and detached. Your silence and indifference are more frustrating to them than any heated comeback. And finally, remember, true strength isn't loud. It's not in yelling, arguing, or outsmarting. It's in staying in control of your own mind. At the end of the day, the strongest person in the room isn't the one who speaks the most. It's the one who refuses to be dragged down by someone else's negativity. When you ignore those who seek to provoke you, you take away their power. And that's real control. Now let's talk about something deeper. Something that requires not just strength, but wisdom. When someone regrets losing you. It's one of life's most powerful shifts. When someone mistreats you, disrespects you, or takes your presence for granted. Eventually, the silence you leave behind becomes louder than any goodbye. There comes a moment when they realize what they had. What they dismissed. What they lost. But by then, it's already too late. Up next, we'll look at what happens when you walk away completely, and how letting them sit with their own regret can be the greatest lesson they'll ever receive. Let's bring it all together in the final part. Here's the truth: if they truly valued you, they would have never risked losing you in the first place. People often don't realize the worth of something while it's still right in front of them. When you're there, consistent, loyal, available, they take it for granted. But the moment you're gone, the silence becomes deafening. That's when regret creeps in. That's when they start replaying every mistake, every careless moment, every time they could have done better, but didn't. And that's why, in the face of regret, silence is the most powerful response. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain. You don't even need to remind them of what they lost. Let them sit in it. Let them feel the full weight of your absence. Because when you walk away without words, no second chances, no maybe later, no drama. Your silence does all the talking. This is where Stoic wisdom grounds us again. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Real strength isn't about controlling others, it's about having control over yourself. It's about the discipline to walk away from those who didn't value you. And the wisdom to never look back. Because true power doesn't lie in chasing. It lies in knowing when to stop giving your energy to people who never earned it. Let me share one last story. There was a woman I know. Let's call her Olivia. She was in a long-term relationship. She gave everything, her time, her heart, her loyalty. And in return, she was taken for granted. Her partner assumed she'd always be there. Until one day, she wasn't. Olivia didn't yell. She didn't beg. She didn't threaten. She simply left. No dramatic exit. No explanations. Just quiet, steady silence. At first, her partner thought she was bluffing. But weeks turned into months. And that's when the reality hit, she was really gone. By the time he reached out, full of apologies and regret, Olivia had already healed. Already moved on. And that's when he truly felt the loss. Because the silence. That was the closure. So how do you handle someone who only regrets you after you're gone? First, don't give them an easy path back. If it took losing you to see your value, they never truly saw you to begin with. Second, don't explain your absence. Let them wonder. Let them sit with the consequences. And finally, remember. Real self-respect isn't just walking away. It's staying gone. Because at the end of the day, the most powerful lesson you can teach someone is this. Once you're gone, you're gone. If someone regrets losing you, let them. Their regret is not your responsibility. Their lesson is not your burden. Walk away. Stay silent. And let karma handle the rest. If this video resonated with you, do me one favor. Hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful, Stoic-inspired insights. Drop a comment with, "I choose silence." Let's continue growing together, calm, strong, and untouchable. Thank you for watching.